Alrighty, so on the same day where I finish up talking about the last team in the moving forward series and looking at their 2023 MLS season, it's time to turn the page and basically start do the season preview of all of these MLS team heading into the 2024 regular season. And I'm going to start with the Vancouver Whitecaps today, not because I'm going alphabetical order, or actually not alphabetical order, but reverse alphabetical order, because the Whitecaps are always the last team in terms of the alphabetical order. But I'm actually going in terms of taking a look at all these teams that's going to be involving in the CONCACAF Champions Cup first, because they do play competitive games before all these teams that is going to get their season restarted in February. But also the fact that the Whitecaps are the first team to play in the CONCACAF Champions Cup that is an MLS team. So, with that being said, let us begin by talking about the Whitecaps in terms of this upcoming season. So, last year they finished sixth with a 12-12-10 record and finished with 48 points. That was good enough for them to make it to the playoffs, which is their last playoff appearance. But unfortunately, it was not good enough for them to beat LAFC in the first round. In fact, it's been a while since the Whitecaps have won a playoff round. 2017 was the last time that they won a playoff round, and as a San Jose Earthquakes fan, yeah, I definitely did not have good memories the last time the Vancouver Whitecaps won the playoff round, because that was the last team that they beat in the playoffs, and it was not close whatsoever. It was a 5-0 drumming that the Whitecaps put on the San Jose Earthquakes. But to this day, that's still the last time that they, of course, won a playoff game. They made it to playoffs in 2021, but unfortunately, they didn't win that one against Sporting KC in the first round. And then in terms of last MLS Cup, well, they never won an MLS Cup, and that's going to be a theme in terms of talk about half of these team in the season preview. Talk about when did they last win an MLS Cup, because we're still only into what, this is the 28th season of MLS, and that, yeah, there are some teams that have never won an MLS Cup, and that the Vancouver Whitecaps is definitely one. Though I will say that, at least to give Whitecaps fans a little bit of slack, yeah, you definitely don't want to be on that list where you're one of those original teams that came into the league in the inaugural season in '96 and have never won an MLS Cup. And unfortunately, if you're a Red Bulls and Dallas fan, yeah, you know who you are. But in terms of transfer, they have done this off season. Well, they bought in Demir Krylak, Fafa Pico, and in the draft they bought in Elliot Goldthorpe. Obviously, Demir Krylak and Fafa Pico are the big name. I mean, Demir Krylak, it is going to be very strange of seeing him in a Vancouver Whitecaps jersey. I mean, if you're an RSL fan, I think you probably might want to look away when he, of course, are going to be playing against you in the regular season twice, because again, it just feels weird, because Demir Krylak, he's been an RSL player for so long, and that, I thought when he decided to move on from RSL, he was going to maybe go somewhere else, not with another MLS team, that is. So yeah, that's gonna be very strange to see him in a Whitecaps jersey. But at least it won't be so strange in terms of Fafa Pico. I mean, Fafa Pico has kind of become a bit of a journey. Man, he's been going to different clubs, now joining the Vancouver Whitecaps, and should provide some more attacking depth to this team. I mean, he was really good in terms of the attacking depth for Nashville, and that the hope is the Whitecaps can bring him in and add more attacking depth to this team, which depth is going to be one thing that I'll mention that is still a big problem for this Vancouver Whitecaps team. Now, in terms of players that is out of this team, you got Simon Betcher, of course. He made his move to Denmark, and I mentioned before in the News of the Week episode, it looks like he was going to join a Danish club. I forgot what that Danish club is, but it is confirmed that he's now going there. So it's kind of an interesting move of him deciding to make a jump to Europe to go to an unknown Danish club, and that I also won't be surprised it might not work out, and he might be coming back in the league and maybe rejoining the Vancouver Whitecaps. You also got Alexandra. He's going back to Brazil, and I think he's going to Fortuna, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have a couple of free agent, and these are the players that right now they're free agent, but the Whitecaps can still re-sign him. You got Junior Horlet, Russell Tyburn, Matteo Campagni, Thomas Hassel, and then Camaro Hubert Bruno. And then of course you got Richie Larea, who is actually a free agent. But it's kind of weird that, as I mentioned before in the News of the Week episode, where Richie Larea is labeled as a free agent, but he's not really a free agent. I mean, he's currently on loan right now with Nottingham Forest. So that just kind of shows you the weirdness of MLS in terms of the rules and stuff. And that I have no idea how that's going to be. Because if you're a club and you're looking to try to sign Richard Larea on a free agent contract, I mean, you kind of can't because, he's on loan right now. And that, if he does go back to Nottingham and Forest, I mean, he doesn't really count as a free agent anymore. And plus, I guess probably he's not a free agent right now since he's on loan right now. I think he's probably now back to Nottingham Forest, so that's kind of the reason why you don't see other team trying to get Richard Larea. And that overall, it's weird to label him a free agent, even though he's currently belong to one club that is only loaning him to the Vancouver Whitecaps on loan and so forth. Now, in terms of the preseason schedule, so far the Whitecaps have played 2 games. Now they spent most of their preseason so far in Spain, so they played a couple of European team, and one of those European team. I'm not even going to trying to pronounce the first letter because that sounds like a very hard way for me to pronounce. So I'll just say that this team called DVTK, they beat 1-0 in that one. In their second game, they did lose to Pushkats Academy 2-0, and then in the next game they play FKTSC on June 27, and then on June 30th, they play against FK Hawkinson. And then in terms of their final preseason game, they're actually going to be back in the state, and they're going to be playing a closed door game against the San Jose Earthquakes. But that's kind of interesting that that counts as a preseason game because technically, again, one of the thing about these teams as in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, I mean, yes, they're still scheduled to play some preseason game um around February, but still, I mean, they're already in the competition of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So, do you maybe count that as a preseason game against the San Jose Earthquakes on the 17th if you're already playing in the CONCACAF Champions Cup? But speaking of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, so I mentioned before who probably has the toughest road to basically win this competition. It's got to be the Vancouver Whitecaps. I mean, they got the most unluckiest draw of have to play against Tigres again. I mean, on one hand, it's a good thing that they're playing against Tigres again because maybe they can get some revenge against Tigres, especially facing them in the Leeds Cup last year. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, or actually, I don't think it was the Leeds Cup that they faced. I think I might have mistaken them with Leon because they had an epic PK shootout. I still remember that was the PK show where they went 19 rounds against Leon, and that was also a game where I basically say that game just does not want to end because of how long that PK shout is. But still, against Tigres, again, a team that unfortunately is basically an MLS killer kind of team, and really in general, a team that whenever they're in the CONCACAF Champions League, or in this case, the CONCACAF Champions Cup, it definitely provides a lot of fear to a lot of teams because they are a team that has really been almost the Achilles heel of every single MLS team that they face. Basically, both of the Monterey team has been a problem for MLS team, and unfortunately, Vancouver has the unfortunate honor of facing them. And what's even more unfortunate is leg two is going to be down in Mexico. So if leg one, if things does not go well in their first home game, yeah, I have a feeling it's probably going to be a quick exit for them in this competition. But then again, maybe they can pull a Toronto. I mean, Toronto did pull off a really big upset against Leon before in a CONCACAF Champions Cup game where we thought they were doomed from the beginning. But yeah, against Tigres, that is not going to be easy whatsoever. Now, when you look at their season and in their first 10 games and also looking at the last 10 games, and I decided to do that because I want to see how their schedule is in the beginning of the season and then compare it to their last 10 games, which was really pretty much post Leagues Cup in terms of the schedule that they have remained. But in the first 10 games, they actually will not play on opening weekend. So we talked about how since there's 2019 in MLS, that basically means that one team, of course, will get the bye week sweepstake, or win the bye week sweepstake, that is. Well, I want to say congratulations to the Vancouver Whitecaps. They won the bye week sweepstake, and I think they're the only team to start their regular season in March, while every single team starts their regular season in February. So their first match is going to be March 2nd. They're going to be playing against Charlotte FC. And then after that, they have to go on the road against the San Jose Earthquakes before going on the road against FC Dallas. Then they play at home against RSL. Then they play against the Portland Timbers. Then they play at home against Toronto. And then they play at home against the Galaxy. They have a lot of home games. Like that's four straight home games. Doing that, you usually do not see teams that have that long of a heavy home stretch. But that also means that, yeah, that means that the Whitecaps will probably have a lot of road games in the middle part of the season. I mean, I remember last season when they had that murderous road where they had to go 7 games on the road, but hey, they survived that stretch. And again, this is knowing the fact that the Whitecaps have always been good at home. This is a stretch where they can really pick up points. But then they have to play against Seattle on the road before going on the road against the New York Red Bulls, and then they of course play against Austin FC. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting schedule. I mean, there are some tough teams there. There are also some easy team. I mean, at home stretch, I think all of those games you could say it's winnable, considering the Whitecaps this season after what Vanni Sartini has done to this team last season, and also looking at the roster that they have. This could be a team that I think could be a dark horse in terms of doing very well in the Western Conference. Now, looking at their last 10 games and looking at post League Cup break, their first game after the Leagues Cup is not an easy one. They have to play against LAFC in that rematch of last year's playoffs. Then they go on the road to play against Austin before returning at home to play Dallas and the San Jose Earthquakes. Then they go on the road against Houston before going on the road against the Galaxy. And then they actually have a 3 game home stretch to finish the season. So basically, again, they have a lot of home games during the first 10 and last 10 games. They're going to get a lot of road games in the middle part of the season. But in their final 3 game home stretch, they play against Portland, Seattle, and Minnesota. So they played the two Cascadia team, and then they of course play against Minnesota United. And then on decision name, they will have to go on the road to play against RSL. So overall, when you look at the latter part of the schedule, I mean there are some tough team there, but again, I think there are some games that are winnable, and especially, again, this is a Whitecaps team. They always do well at home, and this is a chance for them in terms of the back end schedule of them getting a bit of home game. I mean, their back end schedule, I think they get 6 out of those 10 games being at home, including 3 in a row between September or between that week between September 28th and October 5th, because there's a midweek game that is squeezed right there. But that's also kind of good scheduling, considering when you're playing in a midweek game, it's always tough considering that you might have to go on the road, or you if you play at home in that midweek game, you have to come back from a road trip, whereas Vancouver has that luxury of the fact that all 3 of their games in that 3 games in 7 days there are all going to be at home. Now, in terms of the strength of this team, it's got to be the first choice attack, midfield, and defense. So if they put all their first choice player, this team is definitely a playoff team. I mean, this team has a lot of talent on the attacking end. I mean, I can't wait to see the Brian White and Ryan Gull dynamic duo once again worked out well. But when you also look at the midfield, I mean, that midfield is really good as well, with Andres Kubas kind of uh, shutting down in that defensive mid, and then at the back, I mean, we saw last season they definitely look much more improved in previous season, and then they also hope that Takeoka will once again have a good season like they did last year. The weakness, though, is definitely the depth, and you could also say in terms of the fullback position, there is a lot of question mark in terms of the fullback position, especially when they decided to not bring back Richie Larea on this team. So that's going to be something that I think they're gonna also work on. I mean, after they were kind of active in the first part of the offseason, they pretty quiet in terms of this offseason. They haven't really signed a lot of players and depth pieces, and that's going to be something that they need to do, because when you look at this team, they're very top heavy, but when those players goes down with injury, and God forbid if Ryan Galt went down in injury, that could be a huge problem for this Vancouver Whitecaps team. And then, of course, the expectation of this team, obviously, they're looking to gun for another Canadian I mean, when you look at the free Canadian team this season, I think Vancouver is going to be the strongest team. I mean, Toronto is a team that is in a rebuild. Montreal, depending on how Lauren Courtois does and if he can bring back that Wilfred Nancy style of play to this Montreal side, that might be their uh closest kind of rival in terms of the Canadian Championship. Now, obviously, I only compared those three team, and then I forgot to mention that they still have to play against those Canadian Premier League team, and that the Whitecaps had history of choking against those Canadian Premier League team. But still, I do expect with a team like this team to be going for the three-peat in terms of the Canadian Championship. And overall, when it comes to the Canadian Championship, I know recently, for the past couple of years, it's always been between Toronto and Montreal. But Vancouver, the last 2 years, they're making some noises, winning back to back, and they're looking to try to go for the three-peat, which is something that they never done in the tournament history. Heck, I think when they went back to back, this is the first time they actually went back to back in terms of the Canadian Championship. But also, I think the other expectation is that they need to win a playoff round. I mean, it's pretty clear that making the playoffs is a good thing, but they need to also start to show that progression of winning a playoff round. And this is also where it's kind of important for them to have home field advantage, because we know this is a team that is very good when they're playing at home. And that, if they don't have that home field advantage, they might suffer a bit, especially when they do face against a really good team. I mean, it's kind of unfortunate that they had to face against the team that made it all the way to MLS Cup, and also we talk about the controversial moment that happened last year. But yeah, there's no doubt that Whitecaps fans are looking for this team to at least win a playoff round. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of the season preview of the Vancouver Whitecaps. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and also let me know in the comments below what do you think of this format too. I decided to keep it simple this year. I decided to not go too crazy in terms of the season preview as I done in year past, because when I do something super crazy and go too in depth, then yeah, these video gets really long, like my moving forward series, where I think the last one I did with the Columbus Crew, that one was like 27 minutes. That was way too long in terms of me talking about that team and their season, though rightfully so, because they did win MLS Cup, and I had to dissect everything to talk about how they got to that point. But either way, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. If you're a Whitecaps fan, what do you think this upcoming season is going to like? What's your prediction of where they're going to be finishing, and and if they do make it to the playoffs, do you think they can make a dark horse kind of run similar to what we saw the Houston Dynamo make last season? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, be sure to like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.